everybody. My name is Pilar Bonilla, and this is my video for Comps 1 PA730 for the alternative assignment. Thank you to Dr. Spear for going over the syllabus together. I had some questions about the study guide, so I'm glad that that was brought up and that we don't have that for this class, so that's good to know. I also appreciate the really cool discussion that we had on respondent conditioning. I'm so bummed that I missed it because I love talking about respondent conditioning. Something that I feel just very strongly about is that the next generation of BCBAs should be as familiar with respondent conditioning as they are with operant conditioning, and that is not always the case. There's just so much that goes into respondent conditioning that plays a role into all BCBA's professions. And so it was a really cool discussion. I'm so bummed that I missed it. But I have a couple of things that I wanted to just add and talk a little bit about. One of them being the interoceptive versus exteroceptive. I thought that was a really good discussion. That is not something that I have thought or talked about since my master's program. We talked about it, and thinking about stimuli being within either of those classes having an effect on behaviors. We probably might have talked about it in my classes, but I do not remember that being touched on. So really, really cool discussion on that. I also really wanted to talk a bit about the effects of respondent conditioning and I love the way that Dr. Spear asks questions because they're very, very similar to how I ask my supervisees questions. I just kind of give those leading statements and kind of see if you guys my supervisees can figure out where I'm going with it and try to answer on their own. So I love it. Thanks, Dr. Spear. Keep trying to lead us to the answers without telling us the answers. And one of the things that was talked about was were reflexive behaviors. Is everything that is conditioned in respondent conditioning a reflexive behavior? And no. And this was touched on at the very, not the very end, but towards the end of class, was the inclusion of other behaviors that are not considered reflexive, but are considered private. I've had a lot of really cool discussions with my mentor about relational frame theory and, conditioning relational frames within relational frame theory and how that plays a role, or vice versa, how respondent conditioning might play a role there as well. And essentially, what role does respondent conditioning play in our language? It's a fascinating topic. I just love to talk all about it. So I think with reflexive behaviors, of course, they do play a role in respondent conditioning, but respondent conditioning isn't exclusive to reflexive behaviors. And I think the conditioned responses are a good example. And I think that, again, something that Dr. Spear touched on is respondent conditioning is so much more complex than what we think that it is and what we've been taught in I'm assuming our master's programs on respondent conditioning. There's so much more that goes into just simple pairing together and respondent conditioning extinction and things like that. So I don't know, respondent conditioning is just fascinating to me. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about too was the contingency. I think the contingency is such an important piece in respondent conditioning as it is in operant conditioning, and something that I had a discussion with a previous professor maybe a couple terms ago was how much respondent conditioning and operant conditioning overlap, and talking about a multitude of examples in which the responses could either be as a result of respondent conditioning or operant conditioning or both. And I think that's just another kind of fascinating topic to talk about, is the overlap between respondent and operant conditioning. So great discussion, everybody. I loved it. I will be there next class, and I can't wait to learn with you all. Thank you so much.